Are you having a hard time keeping your gold supply up? Don't worry, a lot of people have a hard time keeping it up, but I can help you. Today I want to take a closer look at ISO management and the math behind why you should be putting a bigger effort into how you manage your ISO, starting with one of the biggest and most important and yet simplest principles in all of Marvel Contest of Champions. Ready? The yellow ISO is for mutant champions, the red ISO is for skill champions, the green ISO is for science champions, the purple ISO is for mystic champions, the teal? Light blue? Turquoise? Where's my box of crayons? For cosmic champions, and the regular plain ass blue is for tech champions. That leaves us with one ISO type, the basic or generic ISO. What is that ISO for? Is it for all of the champions? Have you ever heard the phrase, "If it's brown, you must flush it down"? I guess it's not really brown, it's more of a gray with white speckles in it. You know what, if your poop looks like that, you might want to see a doctor. Before I get into the details, I want to explain that this advice does not apply to absolutely everybody in the game, but it does apply to most people. If you're the type of person who just doesn't have any ISO, but has plenty of gold, whether you are a newer player who just doesn't duplicate a whole lot of champions, most of the time you're pulling new champions out of the crystals, or you're a big-time arena grinder who just has a fat stack of gold, then this device doesn't really apply to you. But if you're like one of the many who are having gold issues in this game, then you're going to want to pay attention. First off, I want to explain that it costs roughly the same amount of gold to feed ISO into your champion, regardless of that ISO's type. For example, I have a 5,000 cosmic brick up there, and if I feed that into Thanos, it's going to cost me about 5,300 gold. It's going to cost the exact same price whether I select a mystic brick or a skill brick or any of the class type bricks. And if I go ahead and select 5,000 worth of generic ISO, it's going to cost me about 5,255. So it's actually slightly cheaper to select the generic stuff versus the class stuff. But that's really not too big of a price difference. The big deal here is that I'm only going to be about level 4.5, whereas if I go ahead and deselect this stuff and then I reselect my cosmic brick, I'm going to be nearly level 6. So keep that in mind as we go ahead and check out the spreadsheet. Welcome to the spreadsheet breakdown portion of this video, where I aim to show you exactly how much gold you could possibly be throwing away throughout all of your time playing Marvel Contest of Champions. The first thing that I want to look at is the ISO needs to take a 6-star champion from rank 1 level 1 to rank 1 level 25, which is a grand total of about 591,000 ISO, which honestly, that's a crap ton of ISO. But I'm actually going to add a little bit more onto that as I round the number up to 600,000. And what I'm most interested in about this 600,000 ISO number is the total gold cost depending on the ISO type that you're feeding to your champion. So we have the correct class type. If it's a cosmic champion, here's where you're feeding in those cosmic ISO bricks versus the basic ISO bricks versus the off class type, which again, if it's cosmic champion, here's where you're feeding in those mystic or skill bricks because, well, you ran out of the correct class type and you just got this champion, or you just ranked up the champion and you really just want to make them as powerful as you could possibly get them to be, and you're a little bit too impatient, and that impatience is going to cost you a fortune. Let me reveal these other categories here and show you exactly what I'm talking about. So the first category is the tier 5 brick value, which is going to change depending on the category, of course. Let's take a look at the off class type first, because all tier 5 class ISO bricks give 5,000 ISO towards your champion leveling up, but if you're using the correct ISO type, you gain a 50% bonus. The generic is only 3,000 ISO for a tier 5 brick, but as you're about to see in just a moment, it costs significantly less gold. That's just the way that those ISO bricks are balanced out. So the class ones are about 5,300 versus the generic, which is about 3,100. The total number of bricks to reach this 600,000 total is going to vary quite a bit, as you might imagine. It's going to be 80 total bricks if you're using the correct class type, versus 120 if you're using the incorrect class type, versus 200 if you're using the generic. Now the total gold cost is going to be 425,000 versus 631,000 or 638,000. That's a massive difference, but that's not where we end, because if you notice, that's just the gold category here. That's not the actual total cost. Why is that? Well, all ISO sells for a similar amount of gold. If we take one of these class bricks here and we sell them, it's actually about 2,500 gold. So if we're using the correct class type, it's a difference of about 120 bricks to 80 bricks, which is an extra 40 bricks that we just get to keep or sell for gold. And 40 bricks at 2,500 gold is actually 100,000 gold. So if you're leveling up the champion with the incorrect ISO, you know, the correct ISO is still going to cost you about 425,000 gold, right? And the cost for the basic and off class types goes up by about 100,000 as a result of just losing that ISO. You're missing an opportunity to gain 100,000 gold because you might be a little bit too impatient to wait until you have the correct ISO type. Man, so it's about 300,000 gold difference if you're using the correct ISO versus not using the correct ISO? But, I mean, this is for a 6-star champion. Everybody knows that 6-star champions are stupidly expensive, and that's why Kabam needs to give out a lot more gold as we transition to 5- and 6-star champions, right? Well, what about the older champions in the game? What about the 4-star champions? Well, I was curious about the cost to take a 4-star champion, rank 3, level 30, and of course this is going to depend on the ISO type that we're using. And I went ahead and combined the two categories here, basic and off class, because they're roughly the same total value, right? There's only a difference between the correct class type and not correct class type here. So let's go ahead and show these other categories as well. We know that we know what the value of the bricks are, 5,000 versus 7,500. We know that the 2 bricks cost the same amount of gold, but it's going to take a different number of bricks because of getting that bonus. So it's a difference of 17.33 total tier 5 bricks to feed into your champion if it's the correct class type versus 26 if it's not, which means the gold difference is about 92,000 versus 138,000. But of course you get to then sell off the other bricks that you're not giving to your champion, so 8.67 in this case, which is about 21.7 thousand gold, which means the difference in gold cost between the two is about 92,000 and 159.7 thousand, which, you know, that's definitely a meaningful amount of gold, but, you know, that extra 60 or 70,000 gold, I mean, at the end of the day, that's not going to make or break you, right? Wrong. I have 112 total 4-star champions at rank 3, level 30 or higher, and I'm only counting the ISO that it took to get them to rank 3, level 30. I'm not counting the ISO that it took to get certain champions to rank 4 or rank 5. And to get 112 champions to rank 3, level 30, it's approximately 14,560,000 ISO, which of course is going to change the total cost quite a bit depending on the ISO type. Now, we already know certain categories are going to look similar to what we saw in the past, the brick values and the gold cost value for those bricks of ISO. Of course, that's not going to be changing. But the total number of bricks, here's where things get a little bit nutty, is 1941 tier 5 bricks. These are the big bricks of ISO versus 2912. That's so many ISO bricks. And this is just for the 4-star champions, right? And the total gold difference between the two is 10.3 million versus 15.5 million. However, of course, there's quite a difference in the total number of ISO bricks, which we can sell off then. We can sell off an additional 971 bricks at a 2,500 gold value each, which means 2.4 million gold difference, which means the actual total cost to level up these champions using the correct ISO is about 10.3 million gold versus 17.9 million. Now, it's important to note that this 17.9 million number, that's only if someone went out of their way to choose the wrong ISO type every single time when leveling up a champion. That's very unlikely, right? But what is likely is that somebody will select the correct ISO type until they run out, and then they'll finish leveling up the champion with whatever ISO they have laying around, which means that, you know, somebody who has 112 4-star champions at rank 3 level 30 is probably not spending 17.9 million. They might be spending upwards of, you know, anywhere from like 13 to 15 million versus getting closer to that 10 to 11 million number, which is where you want to be at if you are managing your ISO correctly. And of course, this number is only going to keep scaling up and up as we move on to 5-star champions. Or what about when we can take our 6-star champions to rank 2 or 3 or 4? The numbers just, they keep scaling up and up. So be smart about your ISO usage. When looking at the individual champions, the amount of gold that you save might not seem like that big of a deal, but over time, I can assure you, it will make or break your gold supplies. So again, this does not apply to absolutely everybody, but for most people, what I recommend doing is going into your ISO stash, filtering out just your basic ISO, selecting all, and selling it. The only time I actually use any of this generic ISO is if I'm very close to leveling up a champion and one of the larger ISOs, you know, would be less efficient than just feeding in one of the small plus 125 ISO bricks, even if it is generic instead of class. And finally, because this video is mostly about patience more than anything, waiting until you have the appropriate ISO to feed your champions, even if you have to leave them halfway leveled up at some points in time, I do also want to remind you guys that leveling up your champions during a level up event is the best way to maximize your gold efficiency as well. The gold rewards here might not look like anything too crazy, but if you hit all of the milestones, it's roughly 10,000 gold, and if you do that repeatedly over time, you'll finally have a much larger gold supply on hand. That's going to do it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.